people straggle in, we'll get them seated. But thank you, first of all, for everyone coming. My name is Deputy John Nelson. I work with the Sheriff's Office, obviously. I'm the community deputy assigned out of the Northeast Precinct, which is over by the town of Windsor. Bristol is one of my areas, so I do frequent this part of town. We have Deputy Longley. She actually works out of our West Precinct, and Deputy Mike Block. He basically has two townships in the Northeast area, York and Medina, but then he also has several of the townships in our Southeast district. So we have 3 precincts with the Sheriff's Office, so we have someone here from each precinct. And today we're obviously here to talk to you guys about Neighborhood Watch, if you guys are interested in starting one up. The PowerPoint presentation should take about, I'm guessing, 20 minutes. If I ramble on, it maybe takes 22 minutes. If Mike rambles on, it might take 4 hours.
If they both ramble, we'll be here tomorrow.
Yeah. So if you guys have questions, if we can maybe try to hold off until the very end, and then that way we can answer them all at one time, because sometimes in the PowerPoint presentation, we actually answer the question later on, and then that way it just keeps it going at a nice pace. Okay, so first question is, what is a Neighborhood Watch? Well, a Neighborhood Watch is a program, groups of people living in the same area who want to make their neighborhood safer by working together and in conjunction with local law enforcement to reduce crime and improve their quality of life. The National Neighborhood Watch program has been around for over 30 years. It actually started in 1972, so it's actually 41 years. That statistic was a little bit old. It was started by the National Sheriff's Association, and in 2002, they developed a website called usaonwatch.org, which is where you'll actually get most of your information if you are interested in starting the Neighborhood Watch program. Now, there are basically 5 steps to starting a Neighborhood Watch, and we will go through each step in more detail later. Step number 1 is to recruit and organize neighbors. Step 2 is to contact your local law enforcement agency. If you live in the town of Bristol, that would be me. If you live in a different township, then we would get you in contact with whatever beat deputy or community deputy is working in your township. Or if you live in the city of Sun Prairie, city of Madison, village of DeForest, then we would ask that you contact your local law enforcement agency there to go ahead and assist in helping set up a Neighborhood Watch. Once you've contacted law enforcement, you want to discuss your community concerns. That's going to be a big part of this, because what might be a problem in your neighborhood may not be a problem in a different one. So each neighborhood is going to kind of be unique into what's affecting them and what they're most concerned about. You want to hold regular meetings, and we talk about training on relevant skills. One of the things as law enforcement that we can be asked to do for a Neighborhood Watch group is to come in and do a presentation to train you guys on how to be better observers. What type of information might you need to collect? We might also come in and do a presentation on keeping your property safe, like securing your home. I also do one on internet safety, keeping kids safe on the internet. So there are different types of presentations that we might come in and do for your Neighborhood Watch group. And then step number 5 is implementing a phone tree and take action. Now, this is also important, because how are you going to get information to the people in your neighborhood unless you have a good phone tree? And I know privacy for a lot of people is like, do I really want to give out my email address? Do I want to give out my phone number? Well, part of being part of a Neighborhood Watch is making yourself accessible to getting that information. So, one of the things that we'll talk about later too is just setting ground rules on why you might be disseminating information through a Neighborhood Watch program. We don't want this to be somebody setting up their garage sale and sending out information. That can be done with a different group list. Okay, so step number 1 was to recruit and organize. There are different areas of recruiting. Number 1, probably the most important, is going to be your Neighborhood Watch coordinator. Okay, this is going to be a single person who their general assignment is to overlook the whole Neighborhood Watch group. This has to be a very motivated person. This has to be a person who wants to see this program succeed, and they're basically going to help to coordinate all the other things that go along with the Neighborhood Watch program. Next, you have block captains. Block captains are typically responsible for somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 to 15 homes. It may be a smaller or lesser amount, depending on how many people are willing to be block captains. It might be a cul-de-sac, and there might only be 5 homes within that cul-de-sac, and you have one person there who says they're willing to be the block captain for that area. Group members. Group members are any and everyone within your area, your neighborhood, who wants to be a part of the program. We ask that you know, anyone who lives in your area who wants to be a part of the Neighborhood Watch program is allowed to be a part of it. The only exception might be somebody who is you know, and you kind of have these people, they're a little overbearing, or they're really causing more problems than good. So there might be times where somebody is just not asked, but generally speaking, we want everyone who lives in an area to be part of the Neighborhood Watch program, or be given the opportunity to. Law enforcement. Law enforcement is part of that. Now, and we'll get into this a little bit later too. The one thing to remember is the Neighborhood Watch program is run by the citizens, the people within the neighborhood. Law enforcement makes up a portion of that, but we're not the ones that run it. We don't send out the notices for meetings. We're not out there recruiting the people from your neighborhood. That's up to you guys to do. We're just one key aspect of it. We work with you guys. We help to disseminate information. We take some of the information collected by you guys, and then we might pass it on to other law enforcement agencies. And then the last one is partner groups. And we get a lot of questions, well, what are partner groups? Well, partner groups is any type of other organization who is willing to be either a part of or a contact. So you may have your township, okay? And we'll talk about some of the roles that townships can play later, but the town clerk might be a part of the Neighborhood Watch group. You may have the fire department, because they may come in and help do presentations on fire safety. The media, you might have a contact person with one of the local media stations who sends regular information to you guys. So partner groups can be any other organization outside of your neighborhood that is willing to be a part of your Neighborhood Watch program. So the roles and the responsibilities. All right, NW stands for Neighborhood Watch Coordinator. This was the one person we talked about. This is the person at the top who's really kind of overseeing. As you can see, expanding and overseeing each aspect of the Neighborhood Watch program, coordinating meetings, that's important. How often do you have meetings? We'll talk about that. You're probably going to have a lot of meetings initially, and then you have less meetings as you go out from there. They act as a liaison between the Neighborhood Watch group and local law enforcement. They arrange neighborhood crime prevention training and obtaining and distributing crime prevention materials. And that material can come from various sources. It can come from local law enforcement, it can come from the website, it can come from some other agency that has some program set up maybe to help protect people and citizens. So, roles of the block captains. You act as a liaison between the residents and the coordinator. You attend the meetings when they're posted, maintain a membership list, help to recruit new members, and that's really something that should be done by everybody in the Neighborhood Watch program. You may have a new person move into a neighborhood, they just bought a house, they moved in, you go over there, you introduce yourself, and sometimes you don't necessarily want to come right out and say it, but you know, somewhere along the lines of the conversation, you say, hey, we have a Neighborhood Watch program if you're interested in being a part of it. The block captains also help to distribute materials and information on any upcoming meetings or training.
Not all Neighborhood Watch programs have a block captain. Some of them just have the main coordinator. Some of the successful ones don't.
You know, the great thing about the Neighborhood Watch program, it's been around for a long time, so there's a history with it. But it doesn't mean that in your neighborhood you have to do exactly everything that they do here. This is just kind of a guideline. If you live in a smaller neighborhood, or if there are things that you want to do just a little bit different, as long as it's agreed upon by everybody, you can do different steps in here, or you can add to it. That's the great thing about this, is to make your neighborhood safer doesn't necessarily mean you have to follow this program to the T. It's just really a good guideline to kind of give you an idea of what you might want to think about doing. So, roles and responsibilities of the Neighborhood Watch members: remain active, create excitement, recruit new members. We talked about that's really the role of everybody. Keep records and statistics. That's more about just like when information is disseminated, and like maybe, for instance, we might give out a news bulletin about suspicious-looking vehicles. Keep a record somewhere of maybe what that vehicle looks like, or if there's a license plate that's included with that. Stay informed and inform others, and report suspicious activity to law enforcement. And when we talk about when you report it, if it's suspicious at the time, go ahead and give us a call. It's not a problem for us to come out and make contact with someone and say, hey, we got a call about your vehicle kind of driving around the neighborhood. Is there a reason that you might be here? We can identify them. If we find out that there's been problems later, at least we've got them identified. The problem is a lot of times what happens is people wait too long to report things to us, and then it's really hard for us to do follow-up. But there are certain pieces of information that you can gather, even if you don't report it right away, such as a description of what the person looks like, the vehicle they might be driving. License plates are really important, because with a license plate, we can run that vehicle, and generally then we can track down who the people are. So even if you don't report it right away, you might want to write that information down, keep it somewhere, and then if you find out later that, hey, your neighbor down the road had something stolen out of their vehicle or was burglarized, then you can say, you know what, I'm glad I wrote this down. I'm going to go ahead and pass this information on to law enforcement.
And if something big happens in your neighborhood, we'll do a neighborhood canvas where we'll go door to door. And it's amazing, hate to say, even with a homicide, you go to a house and they'll describe a car. It's amazing how that little bit of information can help.
And in major cases like that, no information is too small, because really sometimes it's that little information that leads to bigger things for us in terms of solving crimes. So what are the roles and the responsibilities of law enforcement? Well, law enforcement helps to develop the neighborhood watch programs. It's kind of like what we're doing here today. We're putting out information. We assist in establishing the groups, we build and maintain a partnership with the community, and we promote safety and security. We also help to prevent and reduce crime. So, and sometimes that comes from the information we get from you. What is it that bothers or is most concerning to your neighborhood? What can we do? Maybe it's doing a little bit of extra patrol during certain hours. Maybe it's helping to set up a speed wave to catch people speeding through a neighborhood. There are little things that we can do, but there's also things that some of these partner groups that we talk about might be able to do too. For instance, one of the neighborhood watch programs that I started in the southeast area of our county by Stoughton, they were having a problem on a dead-end road that was not lit, and it was kind of a parking place for what they thought were teenagers. Basically, they were parking there to make out or do other things. Well, it was troubling to the neighborhood. So they said, what can we do? Can we get you guys to drive through here? We said, sure, we can drive through there, but let's think about what are the long-term solutions? What are things that we can do? So the neighborhood watch group went to the township, and as a group, they petitioned the township to put up a light. That light went up. That was no longer a dark little corner on a dead-end street, and now people weren't parking there anymore. So a much simpler solution than having us drive through there every night was to get that light put up, and it resolved the problem for them. Increased communications between citizens and law enforcement, that's one of our roles too. Okay, roles and responsibilities of the partners groups. So these are just some examples. We got the news, we got the fire department, there's some other citizen groups. Provide information, resources, support, broaden the scope, and coordinate and help to coordinate responses. Again, a neighborhood watch is not just the citizens living in there or just law enforcement. It can be any group that you think can help you guys address concerns within your neighborhood. All right, so step number 2 is contacting local law enforcement. I included Mike in my information because we both work out of the northeast area, which I'm assuming is where most of you guys are from. Josalyn's information is in the presentation at the back end of it. She works out of, like I said, out of our west precinct, which would be like out by Middleton and Cross Plains and Mazamani. So if anybody is here from that area, is interested in starting one out in that area, you can certainly contact Josalyn. And then again, if you're looking at contacting local law enforcement, keep in mind, if you live in the city of Sun Prairie, the village of Marshall, the village of the Forest, any of those areas, you're going to want to go ahead and call your local police department, find out who they have as a neighborhood officer or liaison officer that might be able to help start a neighborhood watch program in that area. So, step 3 is discuss your concerns, all right? We talked about that what might be a problem in your neighborhood may not be a problem in your neighborhood, may not be a problem in your neighborhood. So each neighborhood has their own unique issues going on. It might be property crimes. If you live in a more urban setting, it might be gangs or drugs. Luckily, I haven't heard about too much prostitution, but you know, each neighborhood might have a different problem. So as a group, once you start establishing the members and you sit down and you have a meeting, talk about what it is that's bothering you. And certainly, if it's bothering you, it's probably bothering other people in your neighborhood. Included in this discussion should be ideas to address the concerns. You know, it's very easy to sit there and say, God, you know what, it really bothers me that people speed through our neighborhood. Something needs to be done about that. Sure, it does. But one of the things that we also want to hear from you guys are, what are some of the things that can be done? Is it something, I mean, because you have to think about this. I can drive through your neighborhood, and I can go through there, set up, maybe stop a couple of people, but is that a long-term solution or a short-term solution? It's probably a short-term solution because you know what? Next week I might be in a different neighborhood. I'm not going to be able to patrol yours as much as you guys would like because there's only one of me and there's 4 townships that I work. So we talk also about, think about long-term solutions. Maybe it's something that could be as simple as getting a slow down sign or a yield sign put up. Maybe some places have installed speed humps or speed bumps where it is a little bit uneven terrain. Sometimes it might be taking shrubbery down. Maybe people can't see certain areas. So there might be other solutions to helping to solve these problems other than just having us come in there and doing more patrol. And then who are the players that are needed to help? We talk about the fact that township might be it. If it's a different issue, it could be fire department. Maybe having the news come out and doing a news bulletin for you, that might help to address it too because the news is always looking for good stories. So maybe if you guys incorporate the news to come out and do a piece on the problems that are going on in your neighborhood, it helps to bring light to it, and maybe in the long run it maybe helps to resolve some of the problems. Hold regular meetings. Generally, when you're first starting a neighborhood watch, you're probably going to have a couple of meetings. One might be to recruit new members. The second one might be to talk about the concerns. The third one might be to bring in the players that you need to help. So I can't tell you that you need to have 3 meetings. I can't tell you need to have 5 meetings. That's really up to the neighborhood watch group and how many people want to be a part of it and how much you can get done in each meeting. Generally, after you've established a neighborhood watch group and you have all the players in place and you've discussed the issues that are bothering you and you've brought in the players to help resolve it, you may only need to have a meeting once a year. I don't know. That's up to your neighborhood watch group. Or you may not have another meeting scheduled, but then maybe you guys have a rash of theft from vehicles, or there's a couple burglaries that happen in your area, and you guys as a group say, we need to have a meeting to discuss this. And so then you might hold, or you might call for a meeting and have another meeting just come up because of some problems that you guys are having. So afterwards, meetings are based on how often that you need them. And we generally say that you should have one at least once a year, but that's at least once a year. You can always have more.
One of my neighborhood watch programs we had about 8 years ago, we had problems with drugs, graffiti, break-ins, drinking, trespass, I mean, you name it, we had it. They started our program and they were meeting, I think, every month. Every month we had issues, they give us license plates. I mean, they would bring 4 officers to the meeting and we would sit and listen to their concerns. I'll talk more about the success because I'm so proud of that neighborhood watch. But they were meeting every month. Now they're down to, they meet every 3 months and then we try to go at least twice a year to meet with them. But we would go in there and they would have a notebook just full of complaints. But it was, I guess it was really nice to just see them pull in like that.
I had one neighborhood watch group that they did their annual meeting the same time they did their neighborhood block party. There's nothing to say that it has to be something set up outside of another event. You could have another event scheduled that you know people are going to, and then just set a time when the group of people that are part of the neighborhood watch group can kind of meet off to the side and talk. And it's also a great way too to help recruit by doing it at a time maybe when you guys have, if you guys do a neighborhood block party, it's also a great time to recruit new members.
Yeah, and we bring the fire department out and the squads and kids love it.
Okay, so we talked, meetings can focus on a number of issues, criminal concerns, public safety concerns. Maybe the meeting is to talk about, hey, we would really like to get some sort of educational training or have someone do a presentation on something. Step 5 is implementing the phone tree. We talked about the importance of establishing a phone tree, making sure that you guys have information accessible. Generally, we talk about name, address, a good contact number, and an email address that you can be reached at. If you have an email address that you're worried about spam, you can set up a Yahoo or a Gmail specifically to receive your information, as long as you're checking it. But generally, we want you to have good contact information for you where information can be passed on. The ground rules, we talked about that. We don't want this to become a pain where people are using it to advertise their garage sale, or people are using it to, send out their political views on things, or, and that does periodically happen, and we understand that. This is not a political group, and so we always talk about setting good ground rules about what type of information is sent out on that. Generally speaking, neighborhood watch information should be pertinent to the neighborhood in regards to keeping it safe, should be talking about upcoming meetings or training. And some of that information is going to come from the block captain, some of it can come from the coordinator, some of it can come from us that we send out, such as press releases. Our department does a press release, and when it's sent out to the media, a lot of times I will send a copy of that to my neighborhood watch coordinators, and then they can disseminate some of that information. There's also other websites that you can go to. The state of Wisconsin has one. It's called the Crime Alert Bulletin that you can sign up to get information across the state in terms of crime trends and things like that. The only thing that they ask is that when you sign up for it, you're signing up for it individually. You're not supposed to be forwarding it on. It's their way of getting people to sign up for it. But you can go to a number of different places to get information on any crime trends or things that are happening in your area. So what sort of resources are probably most important for you? We talked about the main website for the Neighborhood Watch program is usaonwatch.org. It's got a lot of great information on there. It's very easy to follow. You can print off a lot of the handouts and stuff that you have here are things that you can print off right from the website. They don't ask for a fee or anything, so you can just go on there and print them right off. DaneSheriff.com is our website, the Sheriff's Department website. They are redesigning it, and the hopes is that they will have an area where people can specifically sign up for some of those news bulletins so that we can send them right to like an email address for you. So hopefully when that gets done, that would be a great resource for you guys. And then a lot of the times we get asked questions like, okay, we have a neighborhood watch now. We want to order signs or we want to get decals or something to identify that we have a neighborhood watch in our neighborhood. Where can we order those? There's a couple of websites. This is usually the best one, AmericanSecurityEducators.com. You can go on there and they have the signs and the prices listed right there for what it would cost. There is a cost for that, but sometimes that can be offset by talking to a sponsor group, or sometimes townships have picked up, or villages have picked up the cost for the signs. Generally, they're not. If you have, let's say, 20 or 30 members in your neighborhood watch, I know the neighborhood that I live in, they just ask up front a $10 donation from everybody, and with that, they had enough to buy a couple of signs to put at the entrances to our neighborhood. Okay, this is my contact information, Mike and Josalyn's. At this point, any questions? There are no dumb questions, only dumb answers, and I got a lot of those. Sorry, go ahead.
Seems pretty valid, like, my neighborhood is an older neighborhood in Sun Prairie, in that there are still older people in their 80s and sometimes in their 90s living in the homes that they built and bought back in the 40s. And there's some little old ladies in there that their lights never come on. I know they're in there. This seems pretty valid for that kind of thing, watching when the garbage can goes in and out.
Absolutely. Yeah, the neighborhood watch is a good resource too, because by building these contacts, let's say you're going away on vacation. You've now established a contact with people in your neighborhood to say, hey, I'm going to be gone for a couple days. Can you make sure you keep an eye on my place? There shouldn't be any vehicles there, or my son-in-law is going to be checking on the residence. Here's his vehicle. In case somebody calls it in, he's all good. There are a lot of things that you can do. Collecting mail or newspapers. One of the telltale signs for somebody scoping out a neighborhood is they'll drive through a neighborhood 1 or 2 days after garbage pickup, because if the bins are still out, guess what? They're not home. If you've got the newspaper sitting at the edge of your driveway and it's the Wednesday paper and it's now Friday, you're probably not home because you would have picked it up. So there are some telltale signs, simple things that some of your neighbors can do to help you to make you less of a victim. And by establishing a neighborhood watch group, you've now established contacts with people around you. It might be something you send to the block captain and say, hey, we're going to be gone for a few days. Can you and some of the people in our area just keep an eye on our house for us? Something as simple as that.
You can contact the sheriff's office too, out of the West Precinct.
Yep.
People will call all the time. I'll be in Florida this month, here's my cell number, here's my son's number. We send it out to patrol and then we just save it in our briefing. You can call anytime.
And I tried to do that once, but then I kept getting recordings that said, press this number, and there wasn't any number to press that addressed that.
What, do you remember what number you were calling?
The sheriff's department.
Our precinct has, like, it has a phone tree because we have individual accounts, so if people want to leave us specifically a message. So, for instance, if you call the Northeast Precinct, it'll say dial 0, and it's supposed to send you through to the main office area. The problem is we're not always there because we have 2 deputies, sometimes maybe 3 deputies working out of that precinct for 6 townships. So once we check on, we may be in our squads and we're out of there. We don't have secretaries and stuff. Feel free to call my number and you can leave a message and I'll make sure it gets in there if you're looking at setting up a home check, a vacation check. The only thing I would ask is I generally work Monday through Friday, 7 to 3. I do flex my hours like when I do presentations here. So don't call me Friday night to say we're leaving tomorrow and we'll be back on Wednesday because I'm not going to get it most likely until Monday or Tuesday.
You can always call dispatch too. I think he put that number, wasn't that on your business card? Photocopy?
It's on the, yeah, if you've got the main handout,
You'll
there's a
always
number
get
that
a
says
deputy.
dispatch. And you can just ask for the beat deputy that works your area. So if you live in the town of Bristol, you say, hi, I live in the town of Bristol. Can I get a phone call from the town beat deputy to set up a vacation check? And they'll go ahead and just dispatch that right to the deputy. You can certainly do that as well. I think, was there a question back there somewhere?
Yeah, we all know what an Amber Alert is. Is there something like that for activity that might be going on in an area?
Well, an Amber Alert is for a missing juvenile, and there are certain criteria in order for us to set up an Amber Alert. And there are times where, like if a child is a runaway, we cannot set up an Amber Alert. It has to be